Ankemaat Heteperu. Welcome back to Kemetic Tuesday. Today, I want to talk about Bes, a dimension of the father, which really speaks to the importance of masculinity. There's a lot of talks of the divine feminine, but not usually a lot of teachings on what divine masculinity really looks like. And I believe that the nature of Bes really plays a huge role in giving that a fair presentation. So, Bes is a dwarf deity. He's presented as a dwarf, and it's the depiction of Bes being connected to the ancestral line of the Kemites, which is one of the proofs behind them tracing their own lineage, not just through the people of Kush, but actually the Twa people of South Africa. Um, Bes is the father of fathers. I know usually when you talk about who's the father god in Kemeticism or in Egyptian mythology, typically you'll get Atum, you'll get Ra, maybe even Ptah or Khnum, but Bes plays that role dominantly as far as what his dimension represents. Everything that you think about when you think of a good father is what you get when you really begin to study the Netcher Bes. So Bes is a dwarf god. Now you notice something interesting about Bes is that he's one of the few Netchers that is fully forward facing, meaning that he is fully engaged in the moment. He's staring directly at you. Whatever he's doing, whether he's engaging in pleasure or he's engaging in defense or offense, whatever it is he's doing, he's giving all of himself to it. So Bes in his own right deals with a certain level of tenacity. Bes is one of the earliest forms or earliest presentations of Christ or Heru. So this is the first Heru. I even like to see him, considering he's a dwarf, he's little, right? I like to see him as a idea of the little Christ or the spark of Christ, the spark of divinity that's active within every person. It's the little bit of God that everyone carries. That's what Bes is. So when we start to look at the way in which Bes was used in Kemetic culture, where well, they would put him outside of their houses. Now, why would they put a dwarf outside of their house? Well, Bes, one of his other names was Aha, which means the fighter or the warrior. Bes was the defender of the home. He loved what was on the inside of the house so much. He loved the husband, the wife, the children, right? He loved home and family so much that he stood out to defend. Bes is a mighty warrior. Not only is he depicted with like a lion's mane, that speaking to a level of authority, he's setting the perimeter, he's speaking to the boundaries, he's deciding what's coming in. He's the security guard outside. He's operating as a sentry. There's something that I used to hear preachers say back when I was a Christian, when they were talking about God. They'd say, God's so tall, we can't go over him. He's so deep, we can't go under him. He's so wide, we can't go around him. And Bes, being forward facing, full of love for his family, fully occupies that dimension. Pretty much, Bes is a challenge to any demonic or wicked force, saying, in order to get to my family, you have to go through me. So he's standing there, putting himself on the line. And the thing about Bes is, big things come in small packages. Bes is one of the strongest dimensions of divine masculinity and Christhood or heruship that you can find. He just happens to look small. That even gives you an idea not to despise the package that something is in. He speaks to the unorthodox. Those of you who go easily overlooked, yet you carry something powerful in the spirit, that's a Bes dimension, which in its own right speaks to a level of humility, knowing what you carry, knowing that you will be overlooked, but still standing on what you carry when the time comes for action anyway. See, in the moment, right? Think about it like this. He's small, he's a dwarf. Everyone's picking on him. He's little, he looks weak. But when the time comes to defend, he defends regardless of what they said about him. That's some divine masculinity. So Bes, like I said, is a warrior against demonic influences. Bes is a symbol for exorcism. So that's one of the other ways in which they would use Bes to ward off demons, or when they were performing their exorcisms, they would often invoke Bess. And there's a few ways in which they would do it, not just through so in some cases it was through Heka, or Hesi, the uh, reciting of his name, certain hymns and rituals and things like that. But when it comes to exorcism, the Egyptians had a practice which matches the way that we were taught it in Pentecostal circles, which is through music. They have their own form of exorcism, which is done by playing the sistrum, which is they had their pretty much, you have your guitar, you have your tambourine like instrument. They would play all of that together, certain chanting, certain shouting, certain sounds, certain frequencies, and they would build an atmosphere that was anti-demonic. And the atmosphere itself would force the demonic energies that were lurking in the room to manifest and be casted out. And Bess is one of the dimensions that did that. So not only would they invoke Bess during a deliverance session or during an exorcism, but they would place imagery of Bess outside in rooms. Now, that deals with him as a warrior. That deals with him as an exorcist, fighting off demons, defending his family from chaos. But the same forward-facing, direct nature that he had when it came time to defend was the same level of purpose he had behind his pleasure. Bess is also a figure known for dance, for music, and for children. So he's not just a father, but kind of give him the archetype of a grandfather playing with their grandkids. They're looking them eye to eye, face to face. They're having fun. He's making funny faces at them. That's one of the reasons why they would often depict Bess with a funny face. It was even superstition in Kemetic culture that when kids or babies or toddlers were laughing, that meant that Bess was playing with them. So these are a few things that you can get really understanding the divine masculine. It's something that protects. It's something that defends. It's something that puts itself on the line, family first. It's something that not only protects, provides, and defends, but also engages in the pleasures of the family. The family is not the same as dad's just always outside. No, it needs your involvement on the inside too. So those are some of the things that you can take from Bess. Bess, if I were to compare him to a different culture, Bess is kind of like the archetype of Yang from the Chinese or Taoist tradition. Yang being Tuaret or Apet. I might do a session on her later, but I have done previous sessions, Patreon, and stuff like that. So if you're interested, right, in any of the other stuff I got going on, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the Patreon. Everything that I have going on can be found on my website. That is caveofmystery.org. I also have a recent book out that you can find on Amazon called Kemetic Prayers. It's a compilation of Kemetic prayers, Heses, hymns, chants, and all types of other stuff. If any of that interests you, check it out. That's it for this session. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.